Hi, my name is Jennifer Johnson, and I'm a Career Services Coordinator here at West Texas A&M University. And today we're going to be learning about personal branding. So let's get started and learn about what personal branding really is. So the definition of personal branding is the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of an individual or who you are. So this can either be to create you as an authority in your industry, elevate your credibility, or just differentiate yourself from the competition. And ultimately, this helps you advance your career, increase your circle of influence, or just have a larger impact. And although this is a long definition, I really think it takes into account all parts of personal branding, and that's why it's so important. So how personal branding can impact you is thinking about it from a company perspective. So we all know companies have brands. And for example, we have Chick-fil-A here, which is a very well-known company. And if you think of Chick-fil-A, I would say that a couple things come to my mind. So they're known as someone who has superb customer experience. They streamline everything. They work to have the best possible customer service. And they have that phrase that we all know, my pleasure. So they set themselves apart. And that is their way that they have branded themselves as what they stand for. So when you're thinking about your personal branding, it's really important to consider, what do you want others to see of you? And kind of translate that same concept over to you as a person. All right, so why is this important? Number one, you already have a brand and you always will. So whether you've tried to create one or not, you already have an existing personal brand. So for some of you, this might not take a lot of work to change, but for some of you, it might. And number two, if you don't manage your brand, you're not really maximizing your potential effectiveness in life. So realizing that you have this brand and then thinking, how am I going to create it? How am I going to shape it in the way that I want to so that I can have the largest impact? And then number three, having a clear brand will empower you to live a more meaningful and authentic life. So this way you're going to say, okay, what do I want to stand for? And what do I want my vision to look like? And therefore everything you do can align with those values so that you make sure moving forward, you have a personal brand that you're proud of, that has a reputation that you really like and want to share more of. So here are some factors that we will be considering today. So number one is your current presence. So what does your current presence look like online and in person? Knowing more about yourself. So what values do you have? And number three, it'll be curating your brand. So how can you start impacting that to better make an impact in the world around you? So for your current, this is a big piece, obviously checking your online presence. Sadly, I feel like, once a week we hear a story about someone who had an inappropriate tweet from 2012. And because of that, they got fired or something was negatively impacted. So it's very important that you look at your online presence and say, okay, what do I have in the world? Is this who I really am now? And is it how I want to be represented? And this goes not only for friends and family, but also outsiders who might Google your name. What are they going to see when you pop up? And then the second part of that current and also going with your online presence, this is where you might need to do some cleanup. So you might need to go in and delete some old pictures that aren't as flattering of you. Maybe you used to be someone who partied all the time, and that's not who you are anymore. That's not what you stand for. So you want to go out and clean those out. This also could mean that you just go in and make a lot of things private that you don't necessarily want shared with the entire public, but still knowing and keeping in your mind that if anyone is viewing it, it's still part of your personal brand. Next, ask others, your friends, your family, your coworkers, your classmates, what do they think you stand for? What do they see you as from the outside? Because sometimes I might see, I'm someone who comes into work and I get straight to work. I'm very focused. And I think I look like I have a strong work ethic. Whereas other people might see that and say, oh, that's the girl that's kind of cold. She's not very nice. She just always comes in and does her own thing and sticks to herself. And so she doesn't like really working with a team, when that might not be the case at all. So you really have to try to look from the outside perspective, and asking people's opinions is very helpful in that. So the next step is knowing yourself so that you can better sell yourself. And this is a huge part of, finding a job, but it's also a huge part of personal branding, because if you know what you stand for, then you're able to start deciding what you want to look like based on that. What do you want to say based on that? What do you want to post on social media based on that? So it's all encompassing. So number one is, what are your values? What are important to you? And some people would even say in personal branding, write these out, write a few things that you really want people to know about you, and think about how you can curate your brand to better suit that. So for me, this would be, my beliefs are very important, but I also want to be known as someone who's very helpful and who cares about others. So that's where you have to decide, what do you want to be known for? And then number two is your skills. So what attributes do you want to highlight to the world? You're taking ownership of your personal brand. So you have the decision to say, these are the things I want people to know about me. So when I'm talking to people, when I'm getting to know people, I'm going to make sure to mention these things or somehow show them that I have these skills. This quote over here on the right says, being clear on what you want to do and articulating why you want a particular role is key to standing out. And we talk to employers many times here in career services, and they say, you know what, it's really important that they know what they want. And we talk to so many students and they just don't know. So taking the time to know yourself first is going to really help you, not only in your personal brand, but helping you get a job in the future and just be successful in whatever field you choose. So here's some different aspects that you really need to consider when you're thinking about your personal brand, because it's not just your online presence, which I think is a huge piece that most people overlook. Who you are in person is a huge part of your personal brand. And that goes back to, my coworker seeing me and thinking, well, that person is just cold. She doesn't want to help other people. She just sticks to herself. When really I might be very happy to do that, but I look from the outside view that I'm cold and closed off, when really I'm just working hard. So you have to consider your live aspects, which part of that would be your body language, your eye contact, the clothes you choose to wear, the makeup, how you do your hair, your nails, your facial expressions. Do you smile at people when you meet them? Do you just have that blank face, or that RBF, as some people say? And then your hand gestures. Are you someone who uses your body? And how does that look to other people? Is it inviting, or is it something that, again, looks cold? So considering all of those pieces when you're trying to create your personal brand is important. And next, thinking about your video aspect. Now, some of us might not have a large video presence. Maybe all you have is some embarrassing TikToks that maybe you want to keep private from employers, but you have to think about what videos you have and what your presence looks like there. So for today, I had to consider, okay, well, on video, I'm only going to be seen from the waist up. So my hair matters, my makeup matters, the top I'm wearing, the jewelry I choose, those are all pieces I had to think about today to make sure that I was putting the best foot forward, that I looked professional, but also friendly and knowledgeable. So when you're making a video, consider that, and also your background. So if your background is a messy bed and you're in an interview, obviously that's not the best impression that they could get of you. You want to show them that you're clean, professional, polished, and that messy bed in the background is just not going to do that for you. And excuse me, lastly, your voice, tone, speed, if you use fillers, those are all going to show a side of you on your video and in live. So if you're someone who has a lot of fillers, you might just seem less confident. You might seem like someone who doesn't know their content very well, when in fact you might, and you might just be nervous. So thinking about how you can get better and practice those things, it's going to help you in your personal brand. Next is your writing. And this is a part that's not only, on your Facebook, if you have a blog, if you have your own website, many things to consider here are your grammar, spelling, punctuation, capitalization, your resume is part of your writing, your cover letter is part of your writing. So all of these things can play into what you look like to others. So if you are someone who struggles in one of those areas, making sure to ask someone else to look at it. If you need your resume reviewed, you can come to Career Services and we'd love to look over that with you, your cover letter as well. But even when you're posting on Facebook, if you're someone who has, an entire paragraph with no periods and it's confusing to read, that doesn't show that you have a strong education. So you have to think about every little thing that you're putting forward. And next is your voice. So we've talked a little bit about this, but how, just then I used a filler. So how you use fillers, if you pause emphatically when you're speaking, and the word choice you use. So if you're someone who is speaking to a group of young students, I used to be a teacher, and I'm using this elevated language that they're not going to understand, what does that tell them about me? Probably that I might not know them or relate to them very well, but it's something that I have to think about. If I want them to know that I care about them, I should probably try to be on their level on some levels. So those are all the different pieces to consider as far as your personal brand looks from the outside. All right, so now we're going to talk about how can you start curating your brand? How can you be known in a good way that you want to shape? So number one is ask one question in every meeting. So when you're doing this, it's really helpful because it shows that you're not only invested in whatever the conversation is, but it gets your name known. So you are seen as someone who is a leader. And although you might not want to be an actual boss of someone one day, you're seen as someone who's knowledgeable, and that's important. And number two, when you're in that meeting or just in general, you should be introducing yourself using your first and last name and your title if appropriate. And sometimes that might just be, I'm a WT student and I am majoring in this, and kind of giving them a little bit about yourself so they know who you are and that name gets heard. Your name gets heard as someone. And when you're in that, if you are asking that question in your meeting and you say, hi, my name is Jennifer Johnson. I'm new to career services and I'm a career services coordinator. And I was just wondering, and then you ask your question, and that gives you a nice lay-in to tell people who you are so you get more well known. And that leads into the next step, which is expanding your circle. So if I really want to be known on campus as someone who helps students, and one of the ways I know I do that is by giving class presentations, then it might take me reaching outside of just my career services bubble and going to meet with professors, engaging with them to say, what can I do to better help serve your students? So, and then even going further than that and saying, okay, what are other colleges or organizations that can help me further what I'm trying to do, that can help pour into my brand and shape what I want to do. And this can also be on LinkedIn, which we're going to touch on in just a few minutes. And next, say yes to those relevant opportunities. So if you want to be known as someone who is a strong presenter and you have the opportunity to present, you should say yes. You also might have to create those opportunities for yourself. So it might be you seeking out those opportunities, not just saying yes when they come along, because sometimes those opportunities don't just come knocking like you hope they will. All right, so every single thing you do either strengthens or dilutes your personal brand that you're trying to create. So I've said it over and over, but every single thing is a factor when you're considering your personal brand, because you might see, it might just be one interaction that someone has with you, but it's going to start shaping who they think you are. And so if that is cold or rude, or if that is not something that goes towards what you say you stand for, people are going to start to talk, and they're not going to think you really are who you might be thinking you are on the inside. All right, so social media, and this is a big part that I think most people think about when they think personal branding, because you think of, social media influencers, what people see online, because that's accessible to almost anyone. So think about, does your social media add to your brand? And this might be that you don't really have much of a social media presence, or this might be, I'm not really proud of some of the things that I said in 2012 on Twitter, and I need to go in there and clean that up a little bit, because that might be detrimental to me. Your LinkedIn is something that can be a tremendous tool in personal branding, because you can not only, connect with others, but you can see other leaders in your industry and kind of emulate what they're doing, repost what they're posting, comment on things, get known that way so that you can be more connected and also be more well known for what you want to be known for. And the next one is Facebook. And this is obviously sometimes your friends, your family, and just other connections that you might have. And although you might feel like, well, this is my safe space to share about my political views. And it might be, but you also have to consider those people that are seeing that, that's part of your brand. So if they don't agree with you, is that going to be something that you are okay with? And are you doing it in a friendly way? Or is it something that is going to be aggressive and that might rub people the wrong way? Also, your Instagram. So this is obviously photos, but it still tells a story of who you are. So, and your captions. So if you're someone who writes captions that are just riddled with capitalization and punctuation errors, who does that say about who you are? And that again could be something that you think, I just want this to be my close friends that see my Instagram. I don't really want the whole world to see it, and that's fine. But you have to consider that so that you know to take it into account for your brand. And then lastly, your Twitter. So again, I think a lot of political views can be shared on Twitter. A lot of people rant on Twitter. So you have to be careful of these things that you're sharing because it could negatively impact your personal brand. But at the same time, you could promote your personal brand by sharing things that are important to you, values that you really hold important to you. So every single post that you have, and I know in my past, I've deleted things because I thought, you know what, that's just not really as kind as I want to be seen. Because in your heart, it might be something that really means something to you, but you have to look at it from an outsider's perspective and say, does this really show who I am to someone who knows nothing about me? If that's all they saw about me is Jennifer Johnson and this post, is it who I want to represent? So how can you start building your brand? So if you're someone who might feel like, well, I don't have a whole lot of a brand, I don't feel like that many people know me or what I'm about, here are some steps you can take. So the first one is you can go to a strengths coaching appointment, and all the appointments I'm talking about today, you can sign up for in Handshake. And if you have any trouble with that, you can always call Career Services. But signing up for a strengths coaching appointment is very helpful because you might have taken the strengths test your freshman year and then kind of not looked at it ever again. But reading through that and seeing, what are some of the things that I'm good at and what is valuable to me, what kind of motivates me, can help you be able to articulate what you want others to see of your personal brand. The next one is career coaching. And this is very helpful if you're like, well, she keeps saying, my industry, but I have no idea what my industry is going to be because I don't know what I want to do. This is where career coaching can be helpful. And it's really a conversation to help steer you and say, okay, what do you like on your day-to-day basis? What are some things, what are your possible passions that you could help steer you into maybe another idea that you've never thought of, or maybe something you're just considering and you don't know how to explore something without just going ahead and doing that thing. We've got lots of options for that. Next, a LinkedIn appointment. I would love to sit down with you one-on-one and go through each piece of your LinkedIn and say, how can I make a bigger impact here? Also, a resume review. So your resume is obviously a paper version, your written version of who you are in a professional world. And so it's very important that this is very polished, professional, and we would love to help you with your resume here in Career Services. Next, an interview prep appointment. So I was always someone who did not feel confident in an interview. And that's a huge piece of your personal brand that you share with someone, but it's so short that you really have to make sure you have everything in place how you want it to look. So coming to one of those appointments can really be really helpful. We can talk through some of the possible questions and answers and coach you on what you might need to improve on. You can also ask for feedback. So if you're, in a workplace and you feel comfortable asking your boss and just saying, what do you think I could do to improve my personal brand? And then lastly, taking action. So for some of you, it might be, well, at this point, you've always been just thought, well, I'm just a college student, and you haven't really considered, maybe your clothing choices. And so you just wear jeans and t-shirts everywhere, but you want to be known in the professional community. You might think, I'm going to start investing in some clothing items that show that I'm a professional, that show that I'm more polished than what I look like now. This might be going in and scrubbing that Facebook clean, or going and connecting with someone on LinkedIn to see how you can better present yourself. So there are many ways that you can start building your personal brand, but just know that it's already started. So even if you're thinking, well, this isn't really something I need to care about, it is something that you might start caring about later when you hear about what others are thinking about you, especially in an interview. And that brings us to the career aspect of personal branding. So obviously who you are, it follows you everywhere, including your career. And you represent whatever company that you're working for or organization. So, if your personal brand doesn't align with theirs, sometimes that can cause a big conflict. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're posting things on your social media, that might not even be allowed depending on, what agency you work for. So really making sure that you use your brand in your search is important. So that's where knowing yourself comes in, knowing what you want and what you value. And also knowing what that company values so that you can make sure that you both align on that page. Next, obviously, the interview is a huge part of where your personal brand comes into play. And the nice thing is you have a nice captured moment where you know that you're going to be judged based on your brand. So you can pay extra close attention to what you're wearing, what you're going to say, how you're going to present yourself, as far as showing up on time and showing your professionalism. So that professionalism is the last part that really goes into your career. So are you someone who follows through? Are you someone who shows up on time, who stays to help clean up after? Are you showing that you have that work ethic that people really value? Because that's probably part of your personal brand that you want to start curating as well. So these are all the pieces of personal branding that I think you really need to start considering and saying, how can I really start making my personal brand speak to what I want it to speak to, and start taking ownership of this personal brand so that you can make a bigger impact on those around you, and show that you stand for something, not just that you are a college student, but that you do have value. So if you have any questions or if you need help setting up one of those appointments, like I said, you can contact WT Career at wtamu.edu. Also have our phone number listed here. And then we also have wonderful social media content that's curated just for you to help you in your career search. So everything from resumes to coaching appointments and what that looks like, those are all found on our social media. And I would definitely recommend our YouTube page. And you might be viewing this here today, but our YouTube page has really great information on cover letters. Let's say it's 2 a.m. and you really want to work on your cover letter and you don't remember how. It's a really good resource for you to go through, watch that video, and then you can start doing that on your own. So it doesn't just have to be in office hours that you can do that. So I hope you found this helpful today. And again, my name is Jennifer Johnson, and I would love to help you if there's any way I can. So please use Career Services to your benefit, and I hope you have a great day.